Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Dawn Richard. She is a licensed professional counselor turned restorative love coach who helps people let go of the past, heal their heart, and find the love and intimacy they desire. She's an international empowerment speaker and host of the Wake Up to Real Love podcast. She is also a single mom. Welcome, Dawn. It is a pleasure to have you.
I'm so glad to be here with you, Irina. We have a lot in common.
Yes, we do. So please share with us your story. How did you become a single parent? Was it a thing of the accident, something planned? Talk about your experiences.
Yeah, so I had been married for 27 years, and about 15 years into my marriage, it wasn't going so well. I had three small kids. I worked for an airline, and I also had a private practice, and I was the primary caregiver of my kids. And my former husband, he had a lot of, I think, emotional issues that he carried with him from childhood. And we went to therapy a few times, like two times. And in that time, the therapist would say, stuff that you're talking about has nothing to do with Dawn, it has to do with you and how you were brought up and the things that you experienced. And so from my perspective, I was like, okay, well, how are you going to work on those things? Because they're causing a lot of problems and issues for us as a couple and our parenting. We had a lot of like power struggles, I would say. And so at that time, I said, this isn't working for me. I want to get divorced because I keep asking you, to fix these things or work on these things or take responsibility for these things. And he didn't. And so for a short time, I said, I'm done. Like, I'm done. And like a couple months later, he kind of came around and he said, okay, I'm going to be the husband that you deserve. And so he took responsibility for a lot of these issues. And we had an amazing relationship for like a year. And after, I don't know, we moved from Texas to Illinois, and he basically like reverted to his old behavior, his old patterns. And I thought, what happened? What happened? And so we went back to therapy for another 2 years. And I kept, I'm a therapist. Like, this is the work I do. I help couples heal their marriages. I help, individuals heal their past trauma. And he would say to me, well, I'm not your client. And I say, I know you're not my client. I'm trying to help support you because I see you struggling and I see how many issues you're still carrying around with you. And so it went another like 7 years. And in the time that I had said, I wanted to leave him, I met somebody at work who was nice to me. I had an emotional affair, whatever you would call it. There wasn't sex or intercourse. Like that was weird for me, but it was somebody who I could talk to, who was encouraging and supportive of me, who really saw me for who I am. Whereas my former spouse would just be like, everything that I did or everything that made me me, he would make fun of. He would criticize. He would, I don't know, he was super condescending and quite rude and disrespectful many times. And so this other person was like, this is how I should be treated. This is how I should be treated. So my former husband, he found out about it. And that's when he made that shift, like, okay, well, I'm afraid I'm going to lose you. So I'm going to, do whatever it takes to create, something different, something better. And after a year, hold on a second. excuse me, after a year, he was like, you know, I don't forgive you. I don't trust you. You betrayed me. And so then when we went back to therapy, you know, a lot of the stuff that came out was things related to him and how he had treated me before.
Right.
And and I said, you know, you still haven't taken responsibility for any of those things. And so the next 7 years was all about me being the cause of all our marital problems. You know, well, if you hadn't betrayed me, then we wouldn't be in this place. And I was like, if you hadn't done all the things that you did for the years before, then I wouldn't have felt so alone and vulnerable in my marriage to want somebody to pay attention to me in ways that you were not paying attention to me. Like you were basically ignoring me. Just, you know, well done, take care of the kids and do this and do that. But actually, you know, making any effort to see me
Mm.
and to make me a priority in his life,
Right.
it was not. So after about 7 years of that, I went on my own healing journey because I thought whether I stay or whether I go, because I couldn't decide. Um, I knew that I needed to heal myself. So actually, that's when I started dancing tango. We were just talking about that before. And that was a huge part of my healing journey because I feel like in tango, you learn a lot of lessons about standing on your own
Mm.
and yet leaning into a partner, right?
Right.
Um, Learning how to be open to being led and you learning how to follow, you know, and feeling that equal energetic exchange of both giving and receiving.
Mm.
And I felt like in my marriage, I was giving continually, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, now, and wasn't receiving anything back in return. And I mean, my former husband was very responsible. You know, he had a good job at the time. He did a lot of things for my kids. You know, he contributed to the household. But for me, nothing was about me. Nothing was about our partnership. Nothing was about, you know, taking time out for each other in order to nurture and nourish our relationship. And so, you know, during my healing journey, my tango journey, I recognize I want something more because what he's giving me and what he's given me for the majority of my marriage is not enough for me. And so I made the difficult decision to leave. I mean, I have 3 kids and I wanted um, a stable family environment for them. But because of our power struggles, there was a lot of chaos and stress and tension in our household. And so all 3 of my kids would retreat to their rooms
Mhm.
because they would never know what they would get.
Mhm.
And so I decided to get divorced. And I knew because I had never been the primary breadwinner, you know, we had decided, you know, as a couple,
Mhm.
he had more earning potential at the time. So let him go to work. And I have more emotional intelligence, more nurturing qualities. And so I would stay home with the kids. And so when I decided to get divorced, I was really afraid. How am I going to support myself? How am I going to support the kids? And right when we got divorced, he he was required to pay me child support, and he did for a year. But after a year, he'd been out of work for several years, full-time work, and so he stopped paying me child support, which was a lot, which was a lot of money. It was basically my rent every month. So I didn't have, you know, I had an okay time with my airline job, paying for groceries and utilities and things like that. But this rent was a huge portion of my expenses. And I had custody of all 3 kids. They all lived with me. They didn't live with their dad because their dad could only afford a 1 bedroom apartment.
Mhm.
So it's been really hard. It's been 3 years since I got divorced, and it's been really, really challenging trying to figure out how to take care of myself. It was just me. If it was just me, I could, do it with my full-time job. But taking care of three kids, and now they're older, so the oldest one, I'm not really responsible for him so much anymore. But the second one, he's in college, and my daughter, she's 19, but she still lives with me. She's finishing high school right now, and it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. And I don't know if it's as hard for men who have been the primary breadwinners, if they have that challenge. But I think for a lot of women who are the primary caregivers, it's really hard figuring out how you're going to become everything.
Right.
Because not only were you the nurturer and, the caregiver and dealing with schedules and, like school meetings and doctor's appointments and all of the things that moms typically do. But now I have to be the breadwinner too.
Yeah,
And it's really, really challenging.
I agree. And I think what helps is creating a budget, a schedule of seeing, what are your ins and outs and what's your month
Right.
average to kind of educate yourself first, because when you're married, like stuff gets paid, things are taken care
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. I mean, he took care of the majority of, the big bills, and I took care of like all the household stuff.
Right.
With my income, I paid for all the groceries, all the household stuff, clothes, shoes, sporting events, things like that. But now when you're on your own, it's like, crap, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Because I make too much money to get government assistance, but I don't really make enough money to, pay for a lot of other things. So like I remember before I moved back to Texas a year and a half ago, I sat down with my two kids that were living with me, and I said, this is how much I make, and this is how much our bills are. And they're like, oh, crap, mom. Like, we don't really even have money to buy groceries. And I said, we don't. So, because they had just been like, I need money for this. I need money for that. And I was like, I don't have it. Like, you have what you need, but we have to decide what's urgent and what's not. And so, going out to eat every day for lunch, sorry, you can't do that. Those new pair of $250 sneakers, sorry, pick something that's $70. That's what your budget is. And so it's been a real challenge and struggle to figure this all out. And emotionally, a lot of times I feel like I'm not enough, that I haven't figured this all out. And you and I met in a different group where it was like a marketing group, potential to make a lot of money. We saw some, other people have success. But because we do things that are more personal growth oriented, that don't have like tangible results that you can hold in your hand, like, oh, I didn't write this book in 5 days. That's like, I'm going to help you heal your heart, and I'm going to help you gain some confidence about who you are and what what your value is in the world. Because I think sometimes, especially for women, if I don't make enough money, if I'm struggling supporting my kids, my family, then I feel like, am I a failure? Am I a failure because I'm not super successful in terms of how the world sees success? I don't have a 6, 7, 8-figure income, and I don't have tons of clients, and I don't have people banging down my door. So it's been really interesting. It's been an interesting process and a journey of figuring out, how can I take care of my family? How can I take care of myself and still find a sense of value regardless?
Right. It's not what you do, but it's who you are being. And success is not, in our three-dimensional world, so success is defined by how much money you make and what
Right.
title you have.
Yeah, what kind of car do you drive and what kind of house do you live in? And, what neighborhood do you live in? And, how many trips have you taken and all of these things. And, I think one of the biggest struggles that I've seen with women, that we've connected with and worked with, is they don't feel valued or valuable. And I think a lot of times in their marriage, they didn't feel valued and valuable because they weren't contributing equally financially. Like that's the only measure of, your contribution to the marriage. And I remember saying, he's like, well, I did more. And it's like, well, because you paid more, but emotionally, energetically, um, psychologically, I feel like I contributed way more to the welfare and well-being of our kids than you did. And
Yeah.
and it should never even be a competition to begin with, which is we, why my former husband and I fought so much because there was always this like, well, I'm doing more than you. And it's like, really? Okay, maybe you did laundry more than me, but I stayed up with the kids while they were sick. I stayed up with them all night, even though I just came back from work and I'm exhausted, but I stayed up with them. Or I took them to all their things, even though I had other stuff going on and I changed my schedule and I accommodated them and and you went to work and you came back. And I'm not saying you didn't have stress.
Mhm.
I'm not, but the way that we contribute should be equal in value, regardless of the dollar signs behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Because our kids, there are a lot of kids who have everything they need financially and little of what they need emotionally and psychologically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that to me is the greatest gift that you can give a child. There's so many kids and adults. I mean, I interviewed this one guy from my own podcast, came from a very, very wealthy family. And he was a mess. Emotionally and psychologically, he was a mess. I mean, by the time I interviewed him, he had done a lot of his own internal work, but because he was not given the tools and the education of emotional intelligence and relational self awareness and how to deal with your emotions in healthy and constructive ways, people turn to drugs and alcohol and pornography and sex addiction and shopping addiction and they become depressed and suicidal and they feel a lot of anxiety because no one teaches them how to take care of their own internal world, which that's what you and I focus on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helping people take care of their internal world, because if you're not taking care of your internal world, then you have a hard time showing up. And I mean, we just said this before we started recording. People wear all these masks out in the world. And I remember in the midst of my marital chaos, I could have been crying on the floor for like an hour. And then I would have to go pick up my kids from soccer or go to a soccer game and say, hi, how's it going? How are you? I'm fine. When really I was, feeling broken and empty inside.
Yeah.
So, how can we learn to honor what's going on inside of us and feel worthy and feel enough, regardless of the challenges I'm having?
Yeah. That's a difficult job. And yeah, nobody, we are taught subjects in school, in
Mhm.
college. We never taught how to deal with heartache,
Real life,
with difficulties.
real life. I remember my son, who's in college now, he took a class his first year. It was called like family dynamics or something like that. And I said, "Oh, Eli, how was that class?" He's like, "Wow, mom, it was really, really fascinating." And I said, "What did you learn? What was your biggest takeaway?" He said, "Regardless of how hard our family was, how challenging the issues we had, they're nothing compared to a lot of the other kids that, what they experienced in their life. Real like physical abuse or sexual abuse or, some other sort of trauma. They saw their parents throwing things, or, one of their parents was an addict, or, so many issues that we face as humans, and yet we hide because we feel ashamed and we don't know how to deal with them. And we're afraid to ask for help because we feel badly, like we don't want to be judged. And so, one of the things that I wanted for my kids is to learn how to process their emotions in healthy and constructive ways, as well as take full responsibility for where they are in the moment. Whatever challenge you're dealing with, whatever struggle you're having, it's your responsibility to figure out how to get yourself out of it. And I'm not saying you have to do it alone. I'm saying you go see a therapist, you go get a coach, you go ask, so and so's parent who deals with whatever the thing is that maybe they need help. Maybe they need help with their physics homework. I can't help you with physics. I'm not a physicist. So go get a tutor, go ask for help. And I think so many times in our life, we judge ourselves, or we feel ashamed for asking for help because we think, oh, I should be able to figure it out all by myself in isolation, in isolation. But we are built to connect. We are built to be in community. We are built to share our gifts and talents to help each other. Like if I have gifts and talents and one thing, and you have another gift and talent and another thing, and I don't have that other thing, then I should feel fine going to you and saying, hey, I know you're really good at this. Can you help me with this? And then the other person saying, hey, Dawn, you're really good at this. Can you help me with this? And this is how we serve each other. This is how we serve each other. This is how we help each other. This is how we encourage and uplift each other, so that no one feels badly about the things that they're not good at, because you can't possibly be good at everything. That's impossible.
So true. I had to learn it the hard way. I dislocated my knee, and as I was sprawled on the floor, I slipped and fell. I was just me and my kids, and I sat on the floor. I never dialed 911 ever in my life. And so I was debating whether, like, I'm not bleeding, I'm fine, I'm breathing. Yes, I cannot get up.
Right.
But if I don't call right now, there is nobody who's going to come and pick me up. And so I dialed in the ambulance. Within 5 minutes, everybody was there. I don't know, 9 angels came and they lifted me up, and I was on my feet. The realization came that it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's necessary. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of responsibility, that wherever you are or wherever you have, you cannot do it by yourself.
Yeah. And I remember when my kids were little and learning how to walk. You know how many times they fell down? All the time, right? They fell down all the time. Even after they could walk, they still would fall. But I remember I never wanted them to feel badly about falling. Every time they fell, I would say, safe, like they were playing baseball. Safe. All right, get back up, try again. And if we could learn to do that for ourselves, that we don't see our falls as failure. We see them as some sort of feedback, like, oh, how do I need to try that differently to avoid that happening in the future? And, when you have these challenges and struggles in your life, and you feel like, oh gosh, how am I going to get through? Because a lot of times we can't see the details. Like, we can see the vision of the end result that we want, but we can't see that every single step that we need to take along the way. And so instead of judging ourselves or thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or that was a mistake, or that was a bad choice, it was like, it's just all part of our learning. So why don't we just say, what did I learn from it? Instead of kicking myself for, you shouldn't have done that, or you're so stupid, or, all the tapes that we play in our head that make us feel less than.
I think it goes back to our school years, when you had to get a certain mark. And if you don't get a certain, you're stupid.
Right. Right. But
It
that's the whole
stops being about
system.
the experience. It just becomes a marking order. Okay, did you get your mark?
Right.
You didn't get your mark. Okay, so we should.
Right. Right. So it's not set up to make people feel good about themselves. It's set up to make people feel badly.
Even like,
And
how you call it, the other polarity of it. When kids play sport, they play soccer. In the end of the time, everybody gets a trophy.
right, like what's the point?
Right? Like, so it's like you either have the punishment for making low mistakes, and on the other hand, you have everybody gets a trophy for
Right.
trying.
Right. Like maybe, maybe an interesting thing would be at the end of the semester of a school, it's not what did you do to make the mark, but it's what did you learn? How did you grow from this class? What did you learn from this class? And it's tricky because a lot of subjects, like maybe your favorite subject was math and my favorite subject was English, and I really didn't care for math and you really didn't care for English. So you're not really paying much attention. But it seems like there should be some better way of judging your success, just like judging your success as a contributor to the society based on how much money you make,
Right, right.
as opposed to how many people did you help? How many people did you serve? What kind of impact and influence did you have? How much did you share your gifts and talents with people who could, who needed them? Why don't we start talking about that kind of stuff? How kind were you?
Mm-hmm.
How kind were you? How many times did you smile at somebody and make them feel a little bit better? How many times did you open the door for somebody, or you saw somebody struggling with groceries and you said, "Hey, can I help you out to your car?"
Right.
Like being a good citizen, being a good human being, as opposed to, some other material standard of success that really doesn't mean anything anyways. I was on Clubhouse yesterday, and this guy who's super wealthy, he's made a lot of money, and he said, when I die, I can't take any of it with me. So
Exactly.
what's the point? What's the point? I mean, sure, it's nice to have, to be able to be frivolous and not be concerned about, paying for this or paying for that or going on this trip or going, but he said, how much is enough? Really, how much is enough?
Right, right.
And do you have enough? And there are plenty of really wealthy people who are miserable emotionally. They have horrible relationships. And then there are wealthy people who have good, whatever. It's not about the economics, but I'm saying money doesn't buy happiness. And there are plenty of people who are financially and economically challenged all over the world who have a lot of deep peace and happiness and a sense of joy just about being alive, not about what they have, but just the experience of being alive.
Yes. It's all about the experience in the end of the day. Did you live your life?
Did you live your life? And how did you live your life? How did you live your life? Because those masks that we wear on the outside world, I remember, I thought about this a lot because the way that my husband treated me inside our home was very different than he treated people outside the home. And I would say if people saw him, they would never think that, oh, he's such a great guy. Like he is a good guy. He is a good man. He has a lot of great qualities. But the things that you do inside your home, would you do those outside your home? In front of the world to see. And to me, that's the measure of, are you being authentic? Are you acting in the ways that you say you want to act and behave? Are the choices that you're making in behind closed doors are the same choices that you would make in front of people?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's very complex and complicated. I mean, nothing is black and white. And I think even, even with my emotional affair, people would say, oh, well, he should have left you, or you should have left him before you did that. Or, I mean, there are all these judgments. Um, and I say that's like, yes, okay, I should have told him that I was thinking about doing this or considering doing this or whatever. Um, and some people are like, that's a deal breaker. But what about all the microaggressions along the way? What about all the emotional violence or psychological violence that people deal with behind closed doors? And yet outside, I have on my mask, my pretty face, everything's fine. It's like, how can we learn to live in alignment and take responsibility for, I don't like this way I'm being behind closed doors. And I know this is something I need to work on emotionally, usually. It's usually some emotional stuff that you have to deal with. And that's why I want to continue to speak out about emotional intelligence, relational self awareness, because our relationships, to me, at the end of our life, that's what we're going to remember most. That's what's going to be most meaningful to us. That's what we can take with us. That's what we can take with us. We take away people's hearts. We have those connections, those heart connections, and the ways that we felt loved or that we helped somebody else feel loved.
Yes, so true.
And that, like, ooh, I feel that. Like, that's what's meaningful.
Mhm.
And so if you are able to do that for yourself, and if you're able to do that for the people that you love, and then just out in the world, if everyone did that, could you imagine what a huge paradigm shift we would have in the entire world? Like that John Lennon song, all we need is love. Da, 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 da. Like that's it. If we all operated out of that, peace, harmony, cooperation, collaboration, community, a sense of value and worth for every single human on the planet.
I want to live there.
Okay. Okay.
What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
Love.
Okay.
Love. Because love is the energy of everything that you are and everything you do. I think people either operate out of love, which, relates to joy, peace, appreciation, gratitude, like compassion, all of those things, versus feelings of fear, anxiety, doubt, fear. I mean, like disbelief, anger, frustration, like all of those lower vibrational energies. And so you're either operating out of a sense of love and connection or a sense of fear and separation. And so I hope for my kids to choose love and connection always, always.
I love that. I think, yeah, it is the most important thing because it's, in the end of the day, it is about love.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to your younger self?
To my younger self, probably to not worry so much. I mean, I'm usually pretty easygoing, but there are some things that I think, oh, I'm not good at that. What's the matter with me? I mean, I still have these doubts and insecurities sometimes. But to recognize that eventually everything works itself out. Whatever challenge you're going through. And my parents were actually pretty good about saying this. It's like, because they have a very spiritual perspective, it's like, this too shall pass.
Yes.
This too shall pass. Whatever you're in the moment that feels awful, and it could be ongoing for a while, it's like, this too shall pass. So what's going to get you one step closer to that better version, to make you feel a little bit better, even if it's just like, I need to go for a walk right now, or I need to put on a song that, takes me to another place where I don't have to, I can just not think about anything and just be in my body.
Yeah.
So this too shall pass. Yeah.
I think it's a very, very good advice. How about advice for single parents who are just stepping onto that journey of single parenting?
Oof. No, I think recognize that you are going to have struggles. Recognize that you will need to develop a skill set that you don't have currently. Um, Become resourceful, ask for help, find community, get support, because you should not be in isolation or feel isolated or feel badly about asking for help.
Mhm.
Create and nourish connections that help uplift and encourage you when you are struggling.
Yeah, this is so true. When I became a single parent, I was the only outlier where everybody else was married and together, and outside they were
Right,
all happy and everything was
right,
going great.
right.
And here I was, this weird person who's figuring out what is normal look like. And this is
There's no such thing.
yeah. And this is how this podcast came to be, out of inspiration, like
Yeah,
to have some kind of resource for people to see that there is light in the end of the tunnel.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. And it's so funny too, Irina, because I have a lot of people asking me often, like, would you go back and do it any different? Would you stay? Would you choose to stay? Are you happier on the other side? And it's like, even though I have these struggles and continue to have some challenges,
mhm.
I feel so much more at peace. I have so much more of a sense of happiness and contentment in my life. And all of my kids too. They're like, oh my God, mom, everybody's way better off. So I say, okay, well, I guess it was a good choice. I wanted I wanted to be happy. I still want my former husband to be happy. I want my kids to be happy and to find a sense of meaning and fulfillment in their own lives. And when you are feeling like all of this heaviness and stress and pressure and sadness and loneliness, that's not partnership. That's not love. I don't know what that is, but it was not the example that I wanted to set for my kids. And I felt like the only way to set myself free and to set them free, because I didn't want them to have the same struggles.
Mhm.
When they chose to get married, I didn't want my boys thinking the way their dad treated me was the way they should treat a woman. I didn't want my daughter thinking that she should be treated in the same way that her dad treated me. Like, I want more for them. I want better for them. I want to be a better example for them. So even if I never get married again, even if I never meet somebody again, I felt like that was the only way to say, you are responsible for the way that you treat people. You are responsible for making amends when you hurt, and asking for forgiveness, and forgiving when people hurt you, because in relationships, people hurt you. It's just natural. It's a part of our experience, right?
Yeah.
But it's what you do with the experience that makes it better or not. So
Mhm.
if somebody is constantly hurting you and never apologizing and never taking responsibility and continually doing the things that hurt you, even if you say, this hurts me, please don't do that,
Mhm.
that's not taking responsibility. That's saying, I don't really care because I'm going to continue doing anything, this thing, even though I know it impacts you in
Mhm.
a negative way. And so, I tell my kids and I tell lots of clients and people all over the world, when you're in relationship, is what you're doing, saying, how you're acting, the choices you're making creating a sense of love, safety, trust, and connection, or not. The opposite is a wall of disconnection, unsafe, insecure, distrust, lack of support. I mean, they're two pretty clear um, sides.
Yes.
And you can feel the love and the connection, and you can feel the lack of love and connection and safety. So, where are you? Where are you putting your energy? And where are you not? So, it's taking personal responsibility and accountability, not only for yourself, but for the people that you love and the people in your community.
This is so true. And sometimes it's difficult to realize that. And
It is. It's not, it's not 50 shades of gray. It's 50,000 shades of gray.
yes.
But how can I be more light? How can I add more light into the gray?
Yes. Yes. Our job is to add light to the dark
Exactly.
or make somebody feel better.
Exactly. And it's not that we're not supposed to have dark. We are. That's a part of our experience.
Yeah.
But it's what you do with it. It's how you transform and transmute it and learn from it. What did I need to learn? What do I need to learn in this moment? Either love and boundaries, or creating a sense of safety and security for myself, compassion for myself, understanding for myself, acceptance for myself, or is it extending that to somebody else? And I believe every circumstance, every relationship is an opportunity to do one or the other or both.
So true. Everything we encounter in life, we can take as a lesson. Because as
Yep.
you said earlier, there is no failure, only feedback.
Yep. And the lessons actually turn into big blessings. I wouldn't be here speaking about this had I not gone through what I went through.
This is true. Are there any fun projects you want working on right now that you'd like to share?
Yeah, actually, okay, I have my podcast, Wake Up to Real Love. That's my passion project. Similar to you, I got inspired because I wanted to normalize people's relationship challenges and let people know that the most important relationship they'll ever have is the one they have with themselves, because that sets the stage for every other relationship, as well as no matter the difficulties and challenges you have, you're worthy of love. Period. You're worthy of love. So that's my passion project. The other thing that I'm working on is I'm creating a membership site for women called Women Worthy of Love.
I like it.
Yeah. So to help women recreate that sense of worthiness, because so many times we feel like maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm less than, maybe something's the matter with me. And because there has been a systemic devaluation of the feminine, and because of the finances, and women used to be property, and all the things, and all these mixed messages. And now I really feel drawn to help women, regardless of their circumstances and situations and experiences and challenges, recognize their inherent worthiness, and value, so that they can show up in their relationships, in their families, in their businesses, to say, here's who I am. This is what I have to offer. This is the value that I bring, and honor that. Honor that. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be some big business thing. It could be in my community. I'm the person that volunteers to bring whatever every time they have an event, or to organize whatever, whatever your gifts and talents are, that you are sharing them in a way that helps you feel good about yourself and that serves the community at large. Because when you're serving the community at large, as long as you're also taking care of yourself, that's to me a win-win. That everybody wins in that situation. You feel good about what you're bringing, and then the other people feel good about what they're receiving. So you're giving, they're receiving, and in turn, you learn to let other people give to you, and you learn to be open to receiving what they have to offer as well.
Yeah, I love it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If people would like to connect with you or learn more about you, where would they go?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram lately. I do a lot of stuff on Instagram and I'm on Clubhouse all the time, speaking in rooms about divorce, conscious relationships, love, emotions, all sorts of things like that, as well as a few entrepreneurial rooms. Because I really want to help raise the consciousness and start educating people about our emotions and processing them in healthy and constructive ways. So send me a message on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. You can send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm not on Facebook as much, even though I have, but reach out to me, send me a message anywhere. I also am on the Owl app as an expert. So if you want to have a call with me or a consultation with me, that's available as well. And I offer I offer complimentary 20-minute consultations. So if you have something, hey, I want to work on this, and I'll see how I can best support you and help you, and if we're in alignment with, how we can work together.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yay! And it's the Awakening with Dawn.
Yes.
So the Awakening with Dawn, or Dawn Richard, or find my podcast, Wake Up to Real Love. Those are the 3 ways that you can find me.
Yeah, and we're going to include everything in the episode notes so people
Perfect.
click and follow you. Thank you so much.
Follow, subscribe, write 5-star reviews. The whole rigmarole.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in and sharing
Irina,
your wisdom. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.